One of the most frequent questions I get asked is, when did I fall in love with movies and how did I get started talking about movies on YouTube? Well, today we're gonna do some story time, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean Chandler, and I turned my lifelong love of talking about movies into a full-time career here on YouTube. And this channel, Real Creators, is all about helping you turn your nerdy passion into a career as well. With that said, today we are just talking about my story of where did all of that start? Where did all of that come from? And so I'm just gonna do a little bit of story time with everybody. So I was born in California, and the first movie I kind of remember seeing was, I think, Oliver and Company. That's the first one I kind of remember seeing in the theater for the first time, but only the vaguest of memories. Then, 1988, we moved to Texas, and the next year, Batman '89 came out, and that's the first movie I remember being excited for this film coming out, because I'd always kind of been the kid that watched Batman cartoons and everything like that. And Batman '89 was this huge, big, gigantic event. And so I was excited for it, even though I was probably a little bit too young to be seeing a movie like that. Still, my mom took me to go see it, and I loved it. I mean, it's just one of these defining movies of my childhood. And then that summer, we took a road trip from Texas back to California, and on the way out there, we stopped in some small town in, I think, New Mexico, and they had one theater there, and they were showing Star Trek V. And they would only play the movie if they sold 20 tickets for the film. So my mom, my sister, and myself made up 3 of those tickets. We sat down and we're like looking around, waiting for the theater to fill out with the rest of the people. And it was a theater that actually had a balcony. I mean, it was like lower level, upper balcony, very cool theater. So strange little experience, the whole thing. That's probably why it stuck with me. It's like the most distinct early memory I have of going to the theaters. It happened to be Star Trek V, not the best movie out there, but a very cool memory of seeing it. And I just kind of always, ever since then, remember being into nerdy things, comic books, and things like that. So my sister and I, every Saturday, we would ride our bikes up to the comic book store, like 2 miles away. So we'd ride our bikes all throughout the neighborhoods. And she'd read the comics. I'd just look at the pictures. We'd always get excited about the new comic book movies that were coming out. And at the time, that was like one per year, one every couple of years. Do we get Wizard magazine? We'd find out about things like, oh, look, there's going to be a Captain America movie. Turns out that one wasn't so good. Oh, look, there's going to be a Fantastic Four movie. Never came out. And then, Batman Returns did come out. And then Batman, the animated series came on, and it was just huge. X-Men, the animated series. All of these types of things kind of just made me love nerdy things. I was always into it. We went to Star Trek conventions all throughout the 90s. We dressed up in these very cheap-looking Star Trek outfits. And this is kind of, Comic Cons weren't the big cons. Comic Cons have kind of become all cons in a certain way of nerdy type things, movies, TV, Star Trek, all of it, all in one. Back in the days, Star Trek conventions were a little bit more prominent for that kind of thing, and that's what we went to back in the day. Jump forward, when I was in high school, I got really into like Asian movies and Chow Yun-fat, John Woo, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, all of that fun stuff. And in fact, I actually put up a Jackie Chan fan webpage in 1997, 1998, and I wrote little movie reviews on there. It's kind of funny to read now because my English was horrible. And my argument is cool, has cool fight scenes in it. Stuff like that is totally ridiculous. And the last dated update I have for it was January of 1999. It's still on the internet, Wayback Machine, so you get little graphics of it. I'll probably put them up on the screen here. So I've always been someone that was into movies. All of my friends were into movies. We're all kind of movie nerds. I'm still friends with almost all those people. We still talk about movies all the time. They're the people that actually take to the movies. If you follow me on Instagram, you might see some pictures of them. One of them is the guy that's gotten me into certain screenings and things like that. And that's just kind of who I was back in high school and what I was kind of into. Then over the years, I was always the person commenting on the IMDb comment boards, found collider.com. I was always commenting in their comments section. around, I don't know, 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, discovered John Campea, Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman, all of those kinds of people, and got really into kind of the YouTube space of people talking about movies. At the time, I was a youth pastor, and so every week I was going up on stage and doing these 45-minute monologues and having to be funny, engaging, trying to keep middle schoolers' attention. So I had this thought, like, I can talk and hold people's attention. I could do what they're doing. And talking to an audience of people is not the same thing as talking to a camera. There's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of things that are quite different about each of them. And somewhere around this point in time, because I was also had started reading Collider.com, as I mentioned already. And so I started some blogs at points in times and wrote some written movie reviews on there. And I guess in 2013 is when the first videos where I talked about movies or TV shows started to appear on this specific channel, and they're still on there. You can still look up kind of the prototypes of Sean Chandler Talks About using the name The Non-Essentials. That's the name of the blog that I had started and done a little bit of stuff with, but I never stuck with it. You know, that website back in the 90s, I did it for like a year or 6 months. I don't remember exactly. Didn't stick with it. Commented on some websites, moved to the next website, moved to the next bulletin board, started a blog, did it for a little bit, stopped, posted some videos on YouTube, stopped. 6 months later, posted a few more video reviews, stopped. And it never stuck with me, but little things happened and I learned experiences. I'd had some blogs on some other subjects where I kind of learned how to do social media, but I did by doing it wrong. I never made any money. I never grew an audience. And so I kind of learned a little bit through trial and error. Then it comes to summer 2016. And I was unemployed. I had resigned from the church I had been working at. It was kind of in a pretty bad place in life at the time. And went on a date night with my wife to go see Ghostbusters. And people have been talking about like hating it on the internet. Reviews, like it had gotten positive on Rotten Tomatoes, but the internet was just tearing it a new one. And I went to go see it and I was like, I mean, it's totally mediocre. I don't hate it. I don't think it's an abomination. Does not compare to the original one, but it's not the worst thing ever. And so I was totally in the middle on it. And on a whim, there's no backstory, there's no reason, there was no thought process going into it. It's like, I'm not doing anything. I guess I'll post a movie review. My first movie review was Ghostbusters. And it's a strange thing because I don't really remember why I picked that movie. Someone was asking me like, hey, why was it Ghostbusters? Why is that the movie that you went with? And I don't know. Because I'd seen X-Men Apocalypse a couple weeks before that. I think I had seen Independence Day Resurgence before. Like I'd seen several other movies that summer while I didn't have a job. And for whatever reason, that's the movie that stuck. That's the one that I decided to do it that changed the trajectory of my life. And that's really where it all started. And that it didn't take off immediately. Jump forward 9 months. In the month of April 2017, like 9 months, hit my first 1,000 subscribers. I was so excited. I made $11 from AdSense that month. So enough for one movie ticket. Actually, that's not true. I started a Patreon account the month before and my mom signed up to give me some adult allowance. So with the adult allowance, I made $21 that month, enough for 2 movie tickets. And so, I mean, it took me a full year before I got any traction. And it really started to take off late 2017 when Thor Ragnarok came off, and then it just exploded when Black Panther came out, and then that was followed by the 1-2 punch with then Infinity War, and then earlier this year it became my full-time job and has literally changed the trajectory of my life, the way that my family works, and has been this incredible experience. Here's the thing where it gets interesting though. People look at my channel and they say, hey, you went from 5,000 subscribers to over 100,000 in like just a little bit over. You exploded. You're like an overnight success. Well, not really. My overnight success took 20 years because I started that Jackie Chan fan webpage in like 1998. And it failed. And then the blog failed. And I didn't stick with YouTube. And I didn't stick with any of these websites. I didn't stick with this channel when I first started it. For 3 years, I started and stopped, started and stopped, and started and stopped. And then even I started the channel. In the first year, it didn't really go anywhere. It took me 9 months to get my first 1,000 subscribers. And then it clicked. It took me 20 years to finally have the success that I've had. So if you're starting and you're frustrated because it's taken you a long time, it took me 20 years and from my perspective, 20 years of failures to finally find this success. And it takes hard work and dedication, but if you work at it and you keep learning and you keep growing and you keep adjusting, you can make this sort of thing happen. Anyway, that's my story of how I went from a weird little kid to a weird grown-up that does this for a living. All along the way, finding a way to turn my love for movies into a full-time career. If you enjoyed this little story, if you want more kind of my tips, suggestions, and answering your questions on how to be successful here on YouTube, consider clicking that subscribe button. I'm going to be answering a lot more of your questions that you guys have submitted. Thank you so much for watching, and as I always say, keep talking movies and YouTube too much.